Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Ford Bronco and whether or not Ford is going to end up putting a V8 in the Bronco. Before getting the video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below, and let's get right into it. So because of what I do for a living, I'm constantly looking up search terms on different vehicles. The Ford Bronco is no different, and every single time I look up the search terms on the new Ford Bronco, I see two things pop up. First thing is, does the new Ford Bronco have a V8? And the second thing is, why doesn't the new Ford Bronco have a V8? So everyone's kind of wondering on this, like, where's the V8 with the new Ford Bronco? Well, guess what? Wonder no more, because Ford's already put a V8 in the new Bronco technically, and that is called the Bronco DR. It's a not street legal, limited production number vehicle that's basically a trophy truck. It's got a 5-liter V8 under the hood, and it has multi-matic shocks, which are crazy. And again, it's basically built out to be a trophy truck. And so, yeah, if you have over $200,000 and you are lucky enough to be one of the 50 people that are getting it, then you can get a Bronco with a V8. But all jokes aside, if we look at the actual production Broncos, let's kind of go through whether or not Ford's going to put a V8 under the hoods of them. Whether it's the regular Bronco or the Bronco Raptor. And I guess if you want a short answer, probably not, and here's why. So with the regular Bronco, you've got a bunch of different packages on it. The package that would most likely have a V8 would be like a loaded up Badlands Sasquatch, for example, or maybe the Wild Track as well, because those are the higher end packages on the regular Bronco. They've got 35-inch tall tires, and it would make sense to throw a V8 under the hood because that would be the engine to power those crazy versions of the quote unquote regular Bronco. But here's the deal. Ford doesn't need to do that to be able to compete within the segment they're trying to compete in with those vehicles, because they already have enough power with the current powertrains. You've got the turbocharged 2.3-liter 4-cylinder that is the base powertrain, which actually beats out the Jeep Wrangler's base V6 from a powertrain perspective, and it also frankly beats out Jeep's 2.0 turbo from a powertrain perspective. So Ford's already winning from that perspective, so they have no pressure to add a V8 to the entry-level engine on the Bronco. Now if we move to the 2.7-liter V6 that's under the hood of the Bronco, that competes again with any of the powertrains in the Jeep Wrangler. Technically, it definitely destroys the 2.0 and the V6, and it isn't quite as quick as the new 4xe, but it's a lot more reliable than the 4xe, and so that's kind of how people are justifying getting a Bronco with the 2.7 versus the new Jeep Wrangler with the 4xe, because the 4xe, even though it has tons of power from the hybrid system, it's not exactly the most reliable thing yet. Jeep is still working out the quirks, and I'm sure they'll work that out in the near future. So that is one place that the Bronco is technically lagging, where Ford could, slot in a V8. But here's the deal, is then it would get significantly worse fuel economy compared to its main competition, which is the Jeep Wrangler. And so then, obviously people would buy it because it'd be cool, because it'd be a V8, but that isn't really what Ford's trying to do. Ford's just trying to beat Jeep and get people, pull people from the Wrangler pool and put them into the Bronco pool. And so again, it doesn't really necessarily make sense. And then on top of that, the Bronco was developed with the intention of it having V6s or 4-cylinders under the hood, not V8s, right? Ford spent a ton of time and money and engineering and effort to make it so that the vehicle works with a V6 under the hood, right? The suspension, the way it's calibrated, and the frame and everything is made to be able to handle a V6 and not a V8. And so Ford would have to completely overhaul the Bronco to make it so a V8 would work. And when the Bronco is sold out for as long as it is, then there's no pressure again for Ford to really do anything like that. Now, a lot of people are probably commenting, well, Jeep has the Wrangler Rubicon 392, and Jeep managed to make that work because they, basically stiffened up the regular Wrangler and they threw in a 6.4 Hemi and it works. And that is correct. But here's the deal. Ford already has the new Bronco Raptor. And Ford actually has talked about the fact that they did try out putting a V8 under the hood of the new Bronco Raptor, doing quote-unquote Bronco Raptor R, which might be the title of this video. And they said that it just didn't perform as well as what the EcoBoost is performing at for what they are, planning on having the vehicle be sold as from an application perspective. And that's basically high-speed off-roading and then also rock crawling as well, which again makes sense, because if you have a big burly V8 under the hood, that's a lot of weight on the front end, which means that the suspension and shocks are going to be taking a lot more of forces when you're, high-speed off-roading, which just doesn't necessarily make sense for a high-speed off-roader. Look at, and I own both these vehicles. vehicles, the new Raptor and the new Ram TRX. The Ford Raptor still uses a twin-turbo V6, and then the TRX uses a supercharged V8, and there's a big difference in terms of compression with the front ends of both of those vehicles. The Raptor is able to perform at a much better rate off-road because of that lighter front end, and I've mentioned this in several videos, and so the same thing kind of applies to the Bronco Raptor, and then the same things that I just talked about with the regular Bronco also apply to the Bronco Raptor, right? They've had to already do a ton of engineering to that vehicle to make it so that it's rigid enough to be able to survive the type of off-roading that they think people are going to subject it to. And so then they would have to do even more to make a V8 work, and that doesn't necessarily make sense when Bronco Raptors are already completely sold out. And, you know, I bet they'll be sold out for the next few years, frankly. And so there's not really any like pressure for them to do anything. Now, obviously, it would be really cool. I just don't see it as being something that really makes sense for them to spend the money when people are already buying up new Broncos like crazy. I mean, Broncos are still going for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over sticker. We'll see what the Raptors are going to go for. I bet it's going to be even more in terms of the, you know, markup over sticker in terms, and I'm talking about used vehicles, not just from dealerships. I'm talking about just used vehicles. It's crazy. And so the point that I want to make with this video is that, you know, as cool as it would be for Ford to release a V8 Bronco, they're probably not going to do it because of all of the changes they'd have to make to the Bronco. And on top of that, there's not any pressure for them to change anything with the Bronco because it's already just completely flying off the shelf. And it seems like people that are buying Broncos don't, like people that are actually owning the Broncos don't really seem to care too much about the fact that it doesn't have a V8. And if you look at the sales with the Rubicon 392, it's doing great, but it's not doing as well as you would think considering how crazy it is. And that's because most people that are buying that are okay with having a lot less power, not having a V8 under the hood. And so again, demographics between Bronco owners and regular owners pretty much overlap, and so it's the same thing. People would rather have slightly better fuel economy and a lower cost for the vehicle if they're actually going to take them off-road, and so they're okay with having an engine that's not as powerful. That being said, I'm sure that there are going to be aftermarket companies that will end up stuffing a V8 under the hood of the Bronco Raptor and under the hood of the regular Bronco, which will be cool, but the downside about that is it'll probably be extremely expensive and reliability on it will definitely be questionable, especially if someone wanted to actually use it as an off-road rig. It would be probably more of a mall crawler. Let's be real. I mean, if you look at these aftermarket companies that typically will shove V8s under the hoods of cars that weren't necessarily meant for it, they're almost always completely just mall crawlers, right? You don't see people take them off-road because, frankly, they just probably wouldn't be able to handle it, right? The whole platform and chassis and everything wasn't developed to be able to handle that much power and that much weight and everything, and so everything would just probably fall apart. I know I went on for a little bit of a ramble in today's video, but I hope that I properly explained kind of like the whole thought process behind Ford not putting a V8 under the hood of the Bronco and it potentially never happening. Again, a Bronco Raptor R would be awesome. It's probably not going to happen, so I guess if you want a Raptor with a V8 under the hood, then, well, get on the list for the new F-150 Raptor R, and if you're lucky enough that you're able to get an allocation, especially one at MSRP, then, well, that'll be the V8 Raptor to have.